My husband, hiding it from me, secretly added his female colleague and her daughter to our official residency documents to get her child into a good school. I didn't make a scene. I just quietly seized all our assets and kicked them out of my life. My name is Sarah, a high school physics teacher. I own a luxury high-rise condo, a gift from my parents who saved up their entire lives to give it to me when I got married. I've always been proud of being an educated, independent woman, and most importantly, someone who is in control of her own life. When I gave birth to our first child, a beautiful baby boy, both sides of the family were ecstatic. My husband Kevin, a brilliant surgeon, was the very picture of a loving and attentive husband and father. From the outside, our life was a perfect picture, lacking nothing. When our son was a month old, we named him Henry, giving him his father's last name. After getting his birth certificate, I took the paperwork myself to the school district's central enrollment office to begin the pre-registration process. I am the homeowner, and the original deed and residency proofs have always been kept securely in my safe, so I was confident it would be a smooth, simple administrative task. I arrived at the residency verification department and waited in line. When it was my turn, I presented Henry's birth certificate and a copy of our condo's deed. The enrollment officer was a young woman with glasses who looked very serious. She took my documents and carefully cross-referenced them with the data on her computer. I sat waiting, feeling relieved that I was taking care of this important step for my son. But a few minutes later, the officer, Linda, looked up, her eyes filled with doubt. "You're Sarah Parker?" she asked in a level tone. "Yes, that's me," I replied. "And you're the sole owner of the residence at 15B in the new tower, correct?" "That's right." She glanced back at her screen, then at my papers. She pushed a printout of residency information across the counter toward me. "Miss Parker, according to the data just updated from the national database, your residence just had 2 new occupants registered last week, a Jessica Huang and her daughter. Adding Henry now would exceed the occupancy limit for this school zone's priority list. This will be very difficult to resolve. Were you aware of this?" Hearing that, my blood ran cold. My chest tightened with a sense of disbelief. Jessica Huang. I would never forget that name. She was Kevin's old colleague, the one he was always saying needed help. A poor single mother, he'd said. But Kevin had never mentioned adding her to our residency, let alone that he had already done it. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" "What, Jessica Huang?" "I have never agreed to let anyone register at my address. This condo is my private property, and I am the sole homeowner." "How is that possible?" My voice began to tremble with shock and rage. The officer seemed flustered by my reaction. "Ma'am, please calm down." According to the file, all the necessary paperwork was submitted, including the original deed and a notarized letter of residence with the homeowner's signature. The registration was finalized on the 15th of last month. If there's an error, you'll need to file a formal complaint and request a review of the process. I tried to compose myself, my hand clutching my son's birth certificate. "My signature? Can you show me that file?" Officer Linda shook her head. "I'm not authorized to do that, ma'am. But rest assured, if you claim no knowledge of this, it means fraud was committed. You should file a police report for a stolen document and a formal complaint about the illegal registration. We will temporarily halt all administrative procedures related to this address, including the registration for your son Henry, until the matter is clarified." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Helen, a colleague from my high school, whose child was in the same grade as Jessica's daughter, Sophie. "Sarah, do you know a Jessica Huang? I think she just submitted an application for her daughter to get into Crestwood Elementary. She was bragging that she just established residency in the district and that she's listed on the residency documents for your place. She had the original papers with her. Are you sure there isn't some mistake? Crestwood is a magnet school. It's incredibly hard to get into. You didn't give her your spot, did you?" Reading the message felt like having a bucket of ice water thrown in my face. All my suspicions solidified into a bitter truth. Kevin did this. Kevin had secretly taken the deed. Kevin had forged my signature as the homeowner to add Jessica and her daughter to our official residence. The purpose was as clear as day: to secure a spot at Crestwood Elementary, the city's top-rated public school, a spot I had been preparing for my own son, Henry. Kevin knew how much I valued our son's education, yet he used my property and my rights to legitimize a fraudulent application, helping a complete stranger's daughter steal that opportunity. I stood up, my whole body trembling, not from fear, but from pure, unadulterated rage. This wasn't just an impulsive act. It was a brazen betrayal, a disgusting disregard for my dignity and my property rights. Kevin secretly adding 2 outsiders to our home's legal documents without my consent, the person whose name was on every single paper, was the final straw that shattered the illusion of the happy marriage we had built. I gave the officer a polite nod. "Thank you. I'll file the reports immediately. This is signature forgery and residency fraud. I will be reporting this to the police." Leaving the district office, I didn't go straight home. I drove aimlessly, trying to piece together the shattered fragments of my thoughts. Dr. Kevin, my husband, the man I trusted, had turned me into a fool. He had used some misguided sense of charity and his own ego to trample on my principles and my family's rights. Residency fraud isn't a small thing. It's a legal matter tied to rights, education, and property. The fact that Kevin dismissed me, was beyond the scope of a forgivable mistake. I decided not to argue, not to cry, not to cause a scene. I would strike back, decisively and cleanly. He chose to protect an outsider by breaking the law and betraying me, so I would use the law to protect myself and my son. First, I had to get my deed back, or render the stolen copy useless. Then, I would purge our residency documents, leaving only my son and me. Finally, I would show Kevin the true power of a homeowner, a head of household, and most importantly, the power of a resolute mother. I got home late that afternoon. Kevin wasn't back yet, probably still at the hospital, or busy consoling Jessica on the phone. I went straight to our bedroom and opened the safe. Just as I suspected, the folder with the original deed and other residency proofs was gone. I had a spare key, but he must have used his to take it. I realized then that he had planned this for a while. I didn't bother calling or texting to confront him. My actions would be the only response he needed. I sat down at my desk and carefully drafted 2 documents. The first was a police report for stolen property, the original deed to my condo, along with a request for a new one to be issued. I emphasized that the document was likely being used by criminals to illegally register unauthorized individuals at my address. The second was a formal complaint to the school district, demanding they review, investigate, and nullify the residency registration of Jessica Huang and her daughter. I stated clearly, I am the legal owner of the property. I am the head of household, and I affirm that the signature on the residency application is a forgery. I never gave my consent for this. As I was writing, my phone rang. It was Jessica's number. I silenced the call, then called Kevin from my own phone. "Where are you?" My voice was unnervingly calm, as if I were asking if he'd had dinner yet. Kevin answered, sounding annoyed that I'd interrupted him. "I'm at the hospital. What's up?" "I'm a little busy." "I just got back from the school district office," I said, maintaining my calm tone. "They told me our address has 2 new residents, Jessica Huang and her daughter." "How would you explain that?" The line went silent for a moment before Kevin started to stammer. Then his voice shifted to irritation, growing louder as his false pride kicked in. "Oh, that? I forgot to tell you. Yeah, I did it. You're the homeowner, so I figured you could help out a friend. What's the big deal? It's just 2 names on a piece of paper. It doesn't cost us anything." Sophie desperately needed to get into that school district. I just thought it was a convenient way to help. "It's a tiny thing. Don't make such a big deal out of it." "A tiny thing?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You stole my legal documents and forged my signature to add outsiders to my family's official residency, and you call that a tiny thing? Sarah, aren't you being a little narrow-minded? I just put their names on a list. I didn't give them a room in our house. You're a teacher. You know how hard it is for a disadvantaged kid to get into a good school. I feel sorry for Jessica. She's a single mom. I see it as doing a good deed, helping people. Don't be so selfish. Doing a good deed with my honor and my property, without even asking my opinion?" I shot back, emphasizing every word. "Are you doing a good deed, or are you just disrespecting me?" Do you even consider me your wife? If you did, you would have asked me first. Do you consider this condo our home? If you did, you wouldn't have arbitrarily added strangers to our family's legal records. Kevin continued to blame me. Women are always so jealous over nothing. I help a friend out a little, and you blow it up into a huge drama. What do you lose by adding 2 names to a document? This apartment is huge, it's not like they're moving in. Adding 2 names isn't a loss of nothing to me, I said firmly. It cost me my trust in you. It cost me the respect a wife deserves. And most importantly, it cost my son the school spot I had reserved for him. What you did is no different from stealing our son's future to get a few words of praise from another woman. I didn't wait for Kevin to reply. I continued, my voice ice cold. Kevin, I've already filed a report with the police. I reported the deed as stolen and reported you for forging my signature. You have 24 hours to return the original deed to me or submit it directly to the police for their investigation. I have also requested that they review and remove the names of all illegally registered individuals from my address, leaving only myself and our son. You'd better get ready to explain yourself to the authorities. Kevin fell silent. What? You called the cops? Sarah, are you insane? Why would you blow this out of proportion? He finally yelled. You're the one who committed an illegal act, violating my privacy and my property rights. That's a big deal. You can call me narrow-minded or insane, I don't care, I said without flinching. Today I'm also redoing all of our son's paperwork. Henry, whose birth name was Henry Daniel, will now be Henry Parker. From this moment on, Kevin Daniel, my son, carries my last name, the Parker family name. I hung up, not giving him a chance to say another word. My hand was still trembling slightly, but an unexpected sense of relief washed over me. I had done it. I had chosen a powerful, decisive, and legal counterattack, leaving Kevin and Jessica no time to react. I returned to my desk to complete the legal paperwork to change my son's last name. From now on, my son would bear the Parker name. It was my strongest declaration of independence, of ownership, and of my commitment to protect my son on my own. I didn't need a husband whose charity was reserved for other women, while he trampled on the happiness and principles of his own family. The residency fraud, no matter how small he thought it was, had exposed a much larger truth. Kevin no longer respected me, and he no longer put our family first. In that case, I would no longer place him in the position of a respectable husband and father. My police report and fraud complaint created a storm. The next morning, I received a call from the district office confirming they had received my complaint and were investigating the residency data. As per regulations, all administrative transactions linked to the old residency documents were suspended. The consequences came faster than I expected. Around mid-morning, while I was teaching physics, my phone buzzed incessantly. I glanced down to see a string of missed calls from an unknown number, followed by a flood of frantic texts from Jessica Huang. Her usual facade of a meek, vulnerable woman was gone, replaced by a harsh, almost threatening tone. Sarah, what the hell did you do? Why was Sophie's school application rejected? Did you call the school and say something? You're a teacher. How can you be so cruel? I smirked. I knew that because I had reported my documents stolen and contested her residency as fraudulent, Crestwood Elementary had immediately rejected Sophie's application. Her scheme to cheat her way into a top school using illegal paperwork had been stopped in its tracks. I didn't reply to Jessica's texts. I focused on my class, trying to keep my mind calm. But the real storm wasn't from Jessica, it was from Kevin. The moment school let out, he called me. His voice was a low growl, filled with unrestrained frustration and anger. Sarah, what the hell did you do? Did you go to Crestwood and say something to get them to reject Sophie's application? I didn't have to go to the school, Kevin, I replied calmly. I just reported to the police that you forged my signature to illegally register strangers at my home. That's a crime. The authorities investigated, found the registration was invalid, and nullified it. The school rejecting her application was the inevitable result. You are a cruel, vicious woman. Kevin screamed into the phone, all pretense of civility gone. You're destroying a child's chance at an education. Do you have any idea how much Sophie needs this? She deserves a better future. All I did was put their names on a list. I didn't give them a room. Why didn't you just talk to me before making such a scene? You call me cruel? I laughed out loud. What right do you have to call me cruel? You snuck around behind my back, stole my legal papers, forged my signature, and used my son's rightful opportunity to play the hero for another woman. And now you're blaming me for not talking to you first? The hypocrisy is staggering. I fought to keep my voice from breaking. I'll say it again, Kevin. The condo is mine. The residency is under my name. You brought strangers into our family's legal life without a single word to me. That is the ultimate insult to me and this family. What you did was illegal and immoral. I've already told the police you forged my signature. Are you so determined to protect Jessica and her daughter that you're willing to commit a crime? Kevin went quiet. He probably never imagined I would be so decisive as to involve the law. His precious ego certainly couldn't handle having to explain forgery to the authorities. You're making a mess of everything, he said, his voice softer but still dripping with anger. I already promised Jessica I would help her. Now what am I supposed to tell her? You've made me look like a fool. Look like a fool? Did you think about how I would look when you did this? I shot back. Did you think about our son's future? All you thought about was your hollow promise to a former colleague, someone you call a friend, but who led you to violate your own family's principles. You're the one who made yourself look like a fool, Kevin. I had no desire to prolong the argument. I delivered one final ice-cold sentence. Your job now is to prepare your explanation for the police and to pack your personal belongings. I cannot continue to live with a husband who disrespects me, disrespects the law, and is willing to steal from his own child to gain appreciation from another woman. I've already had our son's birth certificate reissued. He is now Henry Parker. He carries my name. You can do whatever you want, but from now on, you have lost this family. I hung up, not giving Kevin a chance to respond. I placed my hand on my chest, feeling my heart pound. I was angry, but I had no regrets. I had done the right thing, not just to protect my son's school spot, but to protect my principles and my autonomy. I went home. The condo was quiet, as usual, but I knew a massive storm had just been unleashed. I looked at the new residency documents, which now contained only two names: Sarah Parker, head of household, and Henry Parker, son. I had successfully purged it. I realized that what Kevin called a good deed was just an excuse for him to indulge in a hero complex, to prove to someone else that he was an important man who could solve any problem. And the saddest part was that he chose to do it through deceit rather than being honest and respectful to his own wife. I started to feel an exhaustion that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with betrayal. I stood by the window, watching the New York City lights begin to twinkle. This home was supposed to be our sanctuary. Now, it had become the battlefield for an unavoidable legal and moral war. And I knew this was only the beginning. That night, Kevin didn't come home. I sat alone in the living room, holding my sleeping son. The soft yellow light fell on the new residency papers. A thin piece of paper, yet it carried the weight of a declaration of war. I looked around the condo. This was the inheritance my parents had left me. They were retired professors who had worked their entire lives to afford this luxury apartment in the heart of the city. They wanted me to have a stable foundation, to never have to depend on a husband or his family. I was always grateful for their sacrifice and promised myself I would protect this asset. I remembered my wedding day. Kevin was a promising young surgeon then, full of passion and a certain innocence. He had promised to love and respect me and my family. He appreciated this home, appreciated my status as an independent woman. "I'm so grateful to your parents for giving us this start, Sarah," he once said, his eyes full of sincerity. "I'll work hard to make sure you never have to worry about a thing." I thought I had found my safe harbor, but now? The man who made those promises saw my property, my home, and my legal rights as tools for his good deeds, helping another woman in secret, breaking both laws and morals. I got up and went to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, a chilling emptiness inside me. Kevin's words echoed in my head. What do you lose by adding two names to a document? It wasn't just a disregard for paperwork, it was a disregard for my entire way of life. For a woman like me, who values clarity and boundaries, his unilateral decision over our family's most important legal papers was an unbearable insult. I picked up my phone and called my mother-in-law. Kevin's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Daniel, were retired government officials living upstate. They were reasonable people who knew right from wrong. I told her everything about Kevin stealing the deed, forging my signature, and about me filing a police report and changing Henry's last name. My mother-in-law listened in silence, then let out a heavy sigh. "Sarah, don't you worry. I can't believe Kevin would do something so foolish. Adding an outsider to the household without even asking you, he is completely in the wrong. That shows a total lack of respect for you and for this family. I'm going to call him and give him a piece of my mind. You did the right thing, Sarah. You have to protect your son's rights, first and foremost. That condo is your parents' life savings. You can't let him treat it like a toy." Her words made me feel a little less alone. At least I knew my in-laws were on the side of reason. They wouldn't cover for their son's mistakes. As the night deepened, I held my son and drifted off to sleep. This should have been a peaceful night of family togetherness. But Kevin had chosen to be elsewhere, on call at the hospital, or so he would claim. I knew where he really was. He was with Jessica, comforting her because I had ruined her daughter's school chances, because I had embarrassed him. I glanced at the new papers on the table, listing just the two of us. My heart ached, but I told myself this pain would pass. The most important thing was that I had stopped their scheme in time and protected my son's future. My son, Henry Parker, would now have one fiercely protective mother, and I would be the one to shield him from now on. In the days that followed, the relationship between Kevin and me descended into an Arctic Cold War. He would come and go from the apartment but wouldn't speak to me, except for the occasional sharp remark when I pressed him about explaining the forgery to the police. He would brush it off, saying he was too busy and that everything was handled. Handled how? Handled when my signature was forged and my honor was insulted? On Saturday morning, I took Teddy, my nickname for Henry, for his scheduled vaccinations. On the way back, I was driving down a busy stretch of Park Avenue and stopped at a red light at a major intersection. Idly, I glanced at the white Lexus that had pulled up right next to me. I recognized it immediately. It was the car Kevin often drove to work. My eyes unintentionally landed on the person in the passenger seat. It was Jessica. She didn't look sad or tearful like Kevin had described. On the contrary, she was laughing happily, holding a coffee, her face lightly made up and glowing. The morning sun streamed through the window, glinting off something on her ears. I squinted. The sparkle came from a pair of exquisite diamond earrings. My heart clenched. I recognized those earrings. Kevin had promised to buy them for me. More accurately, he had already bought them 3 months ago, claiming they were a gift for me to celebrate our son's birth. He had shown me a picture, calling it a tribute to his amazing wife, but then he never mentioned them again, and in the chaos of a new baby, I had forgotten. And now, the gift promised to his wife was adorning the ears of Jessica Huang. She was smiling, as if the failed residency scheme and my foiling of her plan were just minor inconveniences. It seemed she had even received an expensive gift as compensation for her troubles. Kevin, in the driver's seat, turned to her. His gaze was tender and affectionate. I couldn't believe my eyes. He was betraying me, openly and brazenly, in the middle of a crowded city street. He had taken the gift meant for his wife and given it to the woman who had colluded with him to forge legal documents. A nameless rage boiled up inside me, but I forced it down. I didn't want to make a scene here. Just then, Teddy started wailing from his car seat. He needed a diaper change. I quickly retrieved a used diaper, sealed tightly in a Ziploc bag, from my purse. I stared directly at the Lexus next to me, took a deep breath, and rolled down my window. The light was still red. I unzipped the bag, pulled out the soiled diaper, and in one swift, decisive motion, I flung it through my open window. It sailed through the air and landed perfectly through the slightly ajar sunroof of the Lexus, dropping right into the car's interior, next to Jessica. Kevin and Jessica, mid-conversation, froze. They looked at each other, then down at the foreign object that had fallen from the sky. Kevin whipped his head around, and his eyes met my cold, hard stare. His face went pale with a mixture of fury and shame. Jessica covered her mouth, a look of pure disgust on her face. The light turned green. I hit the gas and sped away, leaving the Lexus sitting motionless in the middle of the intersection. I drove home, no longer feeling angry, only a profound and bottomless contempt. When I got home, I put Teddy to bed and tried to steady my breathing. I knew Kevin would be furious. He would call, or more likely, storm home to confront me. But I wasn't afraid. I had nothing left to lose. Those diamond earrings and his public display of affection had pushed me past the point of no return. This time, I decided, I would not let him smooth things over with empty apologies. I needed clarity. I needed an end. Less than half an hour later, Kevin was home. He let himself in with his spare key and stormed into the living room, his face red with anger and humiliation. "Sarah Parker, what the hell was that? What was the meaning of throwing that disgusting thing into my car?" he practically roared, shattering the morning's quiet. I was sitting on the sofa, calmly reviewing a lesson plan. I looked up at him, my expression cold and devoid of emotion. It was our son's dirty diaper. I didn't mean anything by it. I just accidentally dropped a family item into your car. Or are you saying that car isn't yours? "Don't play dumb with me," Kevin seethed, stepping closer and pointing a finger in my face. "You knew exactly where I was, and you did that on purpose to humiliate me. Are you really that petty and jealous?" I stood up to face him, my eyes sharp as glass. "Jealous? You're mistaken. I'm not jealous. I'm just gathering evidence of the disrespect and betrayal of the man who calls himself my husband. Let me ask you a question. What about the diamond earrings on Jessica Huang's ears?" Kevin was speechless. He stammered, That was the gift you bought for me when our son was born, but instead, you gave it to the woman who just helped you forge documents to steal our son's school spot, right?" I cut him off sharply. "What do you take me for? A fool who can be easily deceived by your pathetic lies? Or did you think I wouldn't recognize the gift you once showed off to me?" Kevin immediately switched to defense and blame, lowering his voice to play the victim. "Jessica was upset about the residency issue, so I gave her a gift to console her. I felt guilty that I promised to help her and failed. You're the one who ruined things for her. You should have some decency. Compensate her? With my property? With my honor? And with a gift that was meant for your wife?" I scoffed. "You're far too generous, Kevin. Generous to the point of being blind and shameless." Just then, Kevin's phone rang. It was Jessica. He glanced at me, then stepped back to answer. I snatched the phone from his hand and hit the speaker button. Jessica's desperate voice filled the room. "Kevin, I'm so sorry, Sarah. She took the earrings back. I don't know what to do." I was stunned. Took the earrings back? What was she talking about? Kevin quickly tried to explain to Jessica over the speaker. "I told you to take them off and give them to me. I'm giving them to Sarah to calm her down." He then turned to me, his face pleading. "Sarah, calm down. I was wrong. I'll give them to you. Please, just don't make a scene." Kevin went outside and returned a moment later with a small velvet box. He opened it, revealing the sparkling diamond earrings inside. "Here, they're yours. Take them. I admit I was wrong. Please, just let this go. I'm begging you." He placed the box on the table as if it were an offering, a way to buy my silence. I looked at the box, then straight into Kevin's eyes. These earrings had been on another woman's ears. They had been used to compensate for his wrongdoing. They were no longer a gift. They were an insult. I picked up the box and walked to the window. Our apartment was on the 15th floor, overlooking the bustling traffic below. "You think this fixes everything, Kevin?" I asked, my voice chillingly calm. "You think you can mess up, throw an object at me, and everything will go back to normal?" "Sarah, what are you doing?" Kevin started to panic. I didn't answer. A small, cold smile touched my lips. I threw the velvet box with all my might out the window. It tumbled through the air, disappearing from sight. A few seconds later, I heard a faint crunch, quickly drowned out by the sound of car horns below. The box had undoubtedly shattered, the diamonds likely crushed under the tires of passing cars. Kevin rushed to the window and looked down, his face drained of all color. $10,000. That was $10,000, Sarah. Are you insane? Why would you do that? Are you trying to humiliate me? I'm not humiliating you, I said, slamming the window shut. I'm just showing you that to me, anything you have tainted, anything you've used to insult me, has absolutely no value. I don't care if it's diamonds or $10,000. You brought this humiliation upon yourself, and you created this ending. I turned my back on him, leaving Kevin standing alone by the window. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. The ultimate humiliation had made me cold and decisive. I didn't need a gift to atone for his sins. I needed respect. And he had lost that forever. After the earring incident, Kevin and I entered a new phase of extreme Cold War. He moved into the home office to sleep, avoiding me almost completely. He never offered a single word of apology for the forgery or the earrings, only shooting me contemptuous glares, as if I were the villain for destroying property and ruining someone's happiness. I ignored him. I focused on my work at school and on caring for my son. I believed I had acted correctly and didn't need validation from a man who had betrayed me. However, the accumulated stress, combined with sleepless nights caring for Teddy, took its toll. That weekend, I fell ill. A sudden fever left me bedridden, my head spinning. Teddy, sensing my heat and distress, lay beside me and started to fuss. Kevin was in the office. I forced myself to get up, stumbled to the door, and called out to him in a weak voice, "Kevin, I have a really high fever. Can you please hold Teddy for a little while?" Kevin opened the door and saw me, flushed and sweating. He looked momentarily startled, but his expression quickly soured into annoyance. "A fever? Deal with it yourself. You're the one who made a huge scene, and now you expect sympathy for getting sick? I have an important report to finish. Take some Tylenol and go to sleep." He slammed the door in my face, leaving me standing there in a daze of hurt and disbelief. Tears streamed down my face. I wasn't crying because I was sick. I was crying because of my husband's absolute heartlessness. I had a high fever, and our son was crying, yet he abandoned me over his bruised ego and childish resentment. I dragged myself back to my room, cuddled my son to soothe him to sleep, took some fever reducer, and collapsed into an exhausted, lonely sleep. About 6 hours later, I woke up. The fever had subsided, but I still felt completely drained. I looked at the clock. It was evening. Kevin had come into the room at some point. He placed a designer handbag with a bow on it on my nightstand and stood looking down at me. His face was no longer angry, but filled with a sort of feigned remorse and a hint of pity. "I bought this to make it up to you," Kevin said, his voice suspiciously gentle. "I know you've been stressed. And I know you were angry about the earrings, so I got this to smooth things over. Please don't be mad at me anymore." Another expensive handbag, another material object to atone for his sins, to cover up his wrongdoing, just like the earrings he offered me after they had been on Jessica's ears. "Kevin," I said, my voice hoarse, "do you really think everything can be solved with money and gifts? What I need is respect. What I need is sincerity. What I need is for you to admit you were wrong about the forgery and the betrayal, not a handbag to cover up your callousness when your wife and child were sick." Kevin's face hardened with frustration again. "Oh, come on. You always have to be so dramatic and philosophical. I bought you a gift. What more do you want? I'm trying to fix things." "Fix things by buying a handbag after ignoring your sick wife and child? You're delusional." I grabbed the handbag and threw it onto the floor. "I don't want it. Keep it, or better yet, give it to your precious Jessica." Kevin picked up the bag, his face flushed with anger. He couldn't comprehend that my self-respect had been so thoroughly trampled that these cheap attempts at reconciliation were meaningless. Later that night, around 2 a.m., just as I had drifted off, Kevin's phone rang loudly from the office. I woke up and listened as he spoke in urgent whispers. Through the door, I could hear the muffled sobs of a woman on the other end of the line. It was definitely Jessica. I crept out of bed and stood in the hallway to eavesdrop. Kevin's voice was low, but filled with concern. "What's wrong? Don't cry. Tell me what happened." Then I heard Jessica's voice, choked with tears. "Kevin, my landlord kicked me out. They said I was a homewrecker," his wife found out. Sophie and I have nowhere to go. It's pouring rain outside, Kevin. I didn't need to hear any more. I knew exactly what was happening. Jessica, the professional victim, was calling her savior in the middle of a storm. I turned and stood directly in front of the office door. He hung up and saw me, his expression turning guilty and flustered. "What are you doing up? Where are you going?" I asked, my voice low and steady. "I have to go to the hospital." "There's an emergency," he lied, but his darting eyes gave him away. "Kevin, you're a brilliant surgeon, but you're a terrible liar. She just called you, crying that her landlord kicked her out after she was exposed as the other woman, didn't she? And you're planning to abandon your sick wife and son in the middle of the night to run and comfort her, aren't you?" Kevin was silent. He knew he couldn't deny it. "Sarah, you don't understand. She's really in trouble. She's a single mom and now people are slandering her online. She has nowhere to turn. I just want to help her find a temporary place to stay. You don't need to worry." "I'm not worried, Kevin," I said, stepping closer. "I'm worried about your savior complex. I'm worried about your blindness and your cruelty. You have a choice. 1, you stay here, take care of your sick son, and end your relationship with that woman for good. Or 2, you walk out that door right now, and you will never be allowed to come back." I had given him an ultimatum. I couldn't take it anymore. Kevin stared at me, his eyes blazing with anger. "You're always forcing my hand. She's in danger, don't you get it? She's out on the street. I can't just stand by and do nothing. You are so selfish, Sarah." "I'm selfish? I'm the one who was betrayed, and you're calling me selfish?" He didn't say another word. He raised his hand and shoved me hard in the shoulder. I stumbled back against the doorframe, my body weak from the lingering fever. My head spun. Kevin didn't even look back. He opened the front door and ran out into the stormy night. He had made his choice. He had chosen Jessica Huang. I pushed myself up and walked into his office. I picked up his phone and saw the last text he sent to Jessica. "I'm on my way. Don't be scared. I'll protect you." I collapsed onto the cold floor, unable to cry. There were no tears left. I looked out the window and saw the headlights of Kevin's car cutting through the rain. I knew, in that moment, our marriage was over. I had been abandoned by my own husband in the middle of the night, while I was sick, for another woman. The next morning, I called a locksmith. I decided Kevin was not coming back. I would change the locks and have all of his belongings packed up and sent to the hospital. I had given him an ultimatum, and he had given me his answer. Now it was my turn to follow through. The next morning, though still weak from the fever, my spirit felt stronger than ever. The decision to divorce was made, and I wouldn't waver. Lily, our part-time housekeeper, arrived. She was a kind, down-to-earth woman who had worked for us for years and was very fond of me. Seeing me sick and learning that Kevin had left in the middle of the night, she was full of sympathy. "Miss Sarah, what Mr. Kevin did is just awful. You have to take care of yourself. You rest. I'll watch Teddy." While I was resting, Lily came to me with some startling news. "Yesterday, when I was at the market, I heard some of the vendors gossiping about that Jessica woman. They said she's no saintly single mother. The wife of some rich guy caught them and started exposing her all over social media. That's why she's in trouble." I sat up. "How do you know that, Lily?" "Well, the ladies at the produce stand all have smartphones. They showed me pictures of flyers with her face plastered all over her apartment building's entrance. They said her ex isn't some old professor. He's a real estate mogul. And Sophie is the mogul's daughter, not the child of some poor, deceased teacher. Apparently, this Jessica makes a habit of getting involved with wealthy men, playing the victim to get money. This time, the wife found out, and that's why she was kicked out and publicly shamed. It felt like an electric shock. So, all of Jessica's stories about being a struggling single mom, about Sophie being the daughter of Kevin's beloved late mentor, about needing help, were all an elaborate act to manipulate Kevin. And Kevin, my husband with the fragile ego, had fallen for it completely. He was willing to trample on his wife and son, forge documents, and destroy his marriage for a professional con artist. So, her getting kicked out and exposed online? It wasn't because I made a fuss about the residency fraud? I asked Lily. "Oh no, ma'am. They said it was the mogul's wife who did it. You making a scene about the residency was just a small part of it. Miss Jessica has had a reputation as a professional homewrecker for a while now." A huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Kevin had blamed me for being cruel and jealous, for ruining a child's life. But the truth was, Jessica had brought this upon herself. I was just a woman brave enough to stand up for my legal rights. That afternoon, Kevin came home. He walked straight into the living room looking haggard. He must have had a miserable night out in the storm. "You see, Sarah," he began, his voice tired but still accusatory. "You see how badly Jessica is being treated? Because of your blind jealousy, people are using this opportunity to slander her. Do you realize how cruel you've been?" I looked at him with calm eyes. "Kevin, have you still not woken up? Can't you see she's manipulating you? Jessica was exposed as a professional mistress by the wife of another man, a real estate mogul. It has nothing to do with me. How much longer are you going to blindly believe her lies?" Kevin froze. He hadn't expected me to know. "What nonsense are you talking about? Where did you hear these ridiculous rumors?" "Rumors? You can look it up yourself online. I don't need to prove anything to you. What I need you to understand is that I am not the cruel one. The cruel one is the person who snuck around behind my back, forged my signature, and then blamed me when it all blew up. The cruel one is the person who abandoned his sick wife and child to run after another woman in the middle of a storm. You blame my jealousy for everything, but the truth is you're too weak and cowardly to face the reality of the woman you're protecting. I've decided to file for divorce. Pack your things and go. I'll be sending the papers to the court." Kevin didn't believe me. He was still lost in his delusion, convinced it was all a conspiracy by people who were jealous of Jessica. He tried everything to prove her innocence, which only led him to cross even more lines. I received a notification from my bank about a large transfer. Kevin had withdrawn a significant amount from our joint savings account to pay for Sophie's tuition at an international school. I knew that after I had blocked his scheme to get her into a public school via fraud, he had unilaterally decided to use my money to solve Jessica's problems. He hadn't asked, hadn't discussed it. He treated our joint savings as his personal slush fund. I didn't argue over the phone. I wanted to see his blindness with my own eyes. I took a cab to the international school where he had enrolled Sophie. It was the school's annual sports day. I stood at a distance, wearing a mask and sunglasses to avoid being recognized. I saw Kevin. He wasn't in his scrubs. He was dressed in casual sportswear, holding Sophie's hand. Next to him was Jessica, her arm linked through his, laughing and chatting, looking nothing like a woman in distress. Kevin was playing the part of a model father. He participated in the parent-child games, cheering enthusiastically for Sophie. She called him Uncle Kevin with an easy familiarity. They looked exactly like a happy family on an outing. I stood there, watching this nauseating scene. My chest ached, not with jealousy, but with contempt. He could abandon his own son, leave his sick wife, but he was more than willing to use my money to play the hero and dutiful father figure for another woman's child. I took a few photos, the clearest possible evidence of his betrayal and delusion. I went home. There was nothing more to say to him. I understood that he was beyond saving. Deceit and delusion were in his blood. The divorce papers were already drafted. All I had to do was file them. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, Kevin managed to surprise me again with an act of such shameless audacity it was almost unbelievable. One evening he came home after getting Jessica settled. He got straight to the point. "Sarah, I need to talk to you seriously about the retail space." The retail space was a commercial storefront on the ground floor of our condo building. It was my private property. Kevin had once offered to buy it for me as a birthday gift 2 years prior, but I had refused, deeming it an unnecessary extravagance. I later bought it myself with my own money, and my name was on the deed. It was currently being leased out. "What about it?" I asked, on high alert. "I want you to give it back to me," Kevin said. I could barely believe my ears. "Give it back? What are you talking about? That space is my property. The deed is in my name. What is there to give back? I know it's in your name, but I was the one who intended to buy it for you. Now Jessica needs a place to open a bakery to support herself. I think you should give that space back to me, or at least let her use it for her business. She needs the income to raise her daughter." I stared at Kevin, my contempt reaching its peak. Not only was he unrepentant, but his demands were becoming more and more outrageous. "Kevin," I said, my voice trembling with rage, "are you sane? You secretly forge my signature to commit residency fraud. You use our joint savings to pay for another woman's child's tuition. And now you're demanding my legally owned private property to set up your mistress in business? Who do you think I am? Don't call her my mistress. I'm just helping a woman in need," Kevin yelled. "She needs money. She has a talent for baking. What are you even doing with that space besides renting it out? You could help her. Help her? Help her destroy my life?" I couldn't hold back any longer. I shot up from my chair, my hand accidentally knocking over the glass coffee pot on the table. "Kevin, let me tell you something," I hissed. "I am divorcing you. You will not get a single penny that you're not legally entitled to, and I will not give you anything. You have destroyed everything yourself. You don't deserve any more of my consideration." Hearing the word divorce, Kevin flew into a rage. He slammed his fist on the table. I flinched, and the glass coffee pot shattered, sending scalding hot coffee and sharp shards of glass everywhere. I felt a sharp, searing pain in my leg. A large piece of glass had embedded itself in my calf. Blood began to pour out, staining the floor. "Sarah, are you okay?" Kevin asked, looking panicked, but his eyes were still filled with frustration, as if my getting hurt was just another inconvenience for him. I looked down at my bleeding leg, then up at his face. He was standing there, his hands trembling, but showing no remorse for causing the accident. "Don't worry," I said, my voice weak but determined. "This is on me too. I'll handle it myself. You go worry about Jessica's business." I gritted my teeth against the pain and limped to the bathroom to wash the wound. Kevin just stood there like a statue, not offering a word of help. He just watched me bleed, his face a mask of helplessness and exhaustion, annoyed that I had made things so complicated. In that moment, I knew it was all over. Not just the marriage, but every last shred of affection. A man who could watch his wife get injured because of his actions and still only think about demanding property for another woman was no longer worthy of being my husband. The cut on my leg was deep. I had to go to an urgent care clinic to get it stitched up by a Dr. Smith. I asked him to keep it confidential, not wanting Kevin to have an excuse to feign concern. Back home, I limped around. Kevin seemed to have some regret about the accident, but it was a material regret for breaking the coffee pot and causing an injury, not for the act of demanding my property. He tried to appease me again. "Sarah, about the retail space? I'm sorry, I was just angry. But think about it. She needs the money to raise her child. What's the harm in helping out? It's just a rental property to you anyway." "Kevin, you don't have to say another word," I said, my voice completely calm now. My anger had cooled into a quiet resignation. "I agree to give you the retail space." Kevin was stunned. He never expected me to agree so easily. "Really? Sarah, thank you. On one condition," I continued. "We file for divorce immediately. This condo is my separate property. You have no claim to it. You can take the retail space as your entire share of the marital assets in the settlement. We will have no further disputes. Do you agree?" Kevin was silent, considering the offer. A prime commercial space. He could use it to impress Jessica, help her start her bakery. To him, it was a much better deal than fighting with me in court and facing a formal charge for forgery. "I agree," he said, a look of relief washing over his face. "I agree to the divorce. I'll take the retail space." I knew he thought he had won. He thought he had achieved his goal, helping Jessica, getting rid of his difficult, narrow-minded wife, and walking away with a valuable asset. He had no idea that what he had just traded away was his entire family. I began quietly preparing for the divorce. I hired a lawyer, James, and compiled all my evidence, the text messages about the residency fraud, the photos of him and Jessica at the school, and most importantly, the police report for signature forgery. I was willing to give up the retail space not out of weakness, but for a clean break. I would rather lose a physical asset than prolong this humiliating marriage. I wanted the divorce to be fast and final. My surrender was not a defeat, it was my liberation. I watched Kevin as he cheerfully called Jessica to share the good news about the property. I felt a pang of pity for him. He had no idea that the woman he was embracing was a fraud, and the family he had just discarded was the only real thing he ever had. With the divorce terms settled, I began to clean up the wreckage. I didn't want Kevin in my apartment for a second longer. I wanted him gone, for good. I waited for him to leave for work. The moment he was out the door, I called a locksmith and had all the locks on the front door changed. I also changed the combination to the safe. He would no longer have access to my private space. Next was packing his things. I went into the office where he'd been sleeping for weeks. A few sets of clothes, some medical textbooks, a handful of personal items. I didn't care about any of it. I grabbed a large suitcase and started tossing everything in, not bothering to fold a thing. Once it was packed, I called a courier service and had them deliver the suitcase directly to the hospital where Kevin worked. The delivery note read, "Dr. Kevin Daniel, personal effects. He would have no excuse to return." When Kevin came home from his shift, he stood at the door, unable to get in. He called me. "Sarah, what did you do? The code's not working." "Did you change it?" His voice was annoyed, but he didn't dare raise it. "Yes, I changed the code in the locks," I replied, my tone that of a stranger. "Why would you do that?" "I'm your husband." "No, you're not my husband anymore. You agreed to the divorce. This condo is my separate property, and I have the right to keep strangers out. Your belongings have been sent to the hospital. You can pick them up there." He hung up. I knew his ego had taken a massive blow. He never imagined I could be so decisive and clinical. He called back a minute later. "You're kicking me out of my own home? You chose to leave, Kevin. That night, you chose that woman over your sick wife and child. I'm just respecting your decision. I no longer want any man other than my father and my son in this apartment." He hung up again. I knew he was furious, but there was nothing he could do. My actions were perfectly legal. That night, I had the most peaceful sleep I'd had in months. The apartment was silent. No trace of Kevin, no coldness, no lies. Just me and my son, Henry Parker. I had cleaned up the aftermath of a failed marriage. I had ended it. Now it was time to face his family. My in-laws, Mr. and Mrs. Daniel, decided to drive down from upstate. I knew they weren't coming to defend Kevin, they were coming to teach him a lesson. When they arrived, I welcomed them warmly. I showed them all the evidence, the new residency documents, the police report, and the photos of Kevin playing happy family with Jessica and her daughter. I also told them about his demand for my retail space and the accident that led to my injury. My father-in-law, a stern, dignified man, was speechless at first. Then he slammed his hand on the table. That worthless boy, how dare he do something so disgraceful? Forging signatures, demanding his wife's property for an outsider. Does he have no respect for you at all? My mother-in-law, Donna, burst into tears. "Oh, Sarah, my dear, I am so sorry. We failed to raise him right. You go ahead with the divorce. We fully support you. We can't let our son put you through any more humiliation." They called Kevin and demanded he come over immediately. He arrived looking tired and worn, but still carrying a hint of arrogance. "Mom, Dad, what's so urgent? I was busy at the hospital." "Busy? Too busy to be home with your wife and son? Too busy to sneak another woman into your home by forging documents?" his father roared. Kevin was stunned. He never thought I'd tell his parents everything. "Dad, let me explain. I was just helping Jessica. She's a single mom. She's had a hard life." "Shut your mouth," his father bellowed. "You think helping someone gives you the right to trample on your wife's honor and rights? That condo, those residency documents, they belong to Sarah. What right do you have to make decisions about them? And you demanded her retail space so that woman could open a bakery? Do you see Sarah as your employee or your servant, mister?" Daniel showed Kevin the photos I had taken at the school. "Look at this. You're playing dad and husband to someone else's family while you abandon your own son." What kind of father, what kind of husband are you, Kevin? Kevin stared at the photos, his face ashen, his ego shattered. The truth had been laid bare in front of his parents. I didn't mean to, he stammered. I was being manipulated. Manipulated? His mother cried, tears in her eyes. You're a doctor, an educated man, and you're blaming someone else for manipulating you? You're just a coward with a fragile ego, desperate to look like a hero. Afterward, they turned to me. Sarah, you go ahead and file the papers. We'll make sure everything goes quickly. Don't let that boy cause you any more pain. I felt a profound sense of relief. I finally had the full support of his family. After that confrontation, Kevin was a wreck. He moved into the retail space I had agreed to give him while we prepared the paperwork. I could tell he still half believed Jessica's stories. His blindness was so profound he couldn't accept the truth. I decided he needed irrefutable proof. I had my lawyer dig deeper into Jessica Huang's background. The true story of the woman Kevin called a friend and a vulnerable victim slowly came to light. Jessica Huang, who went by the Healing Goddess on social media and often posed in scrubs, had her nursing license revoked years ago for insurance fraud and falsifying medical records. Sophie was indeed the daughter of a wealthy real estate mogul, not a deceased mentor. Jessica used the child as a tool to gain sympathy and access to men of status and wealth, like Kevin. The most damning information was that she had a prior conviction for fraud, soliciting charitable donations for fictional causes. Her eviction was real, but it had been orchestrated by the mogul's angry wife. Jessica had then expertly used the situation to guilt Kevin into helping her. I forwarded all of this evidence to Kevin in an email. I wrote nothing, just attached the files, legal documents, court records, and screenshots of deleted news articles. A few hours later, he called me. His voice was no longer angry, just filled with sheer horror. Sarah, is this stuff real? Jessica? She's a professional mistress? Sophie isn't his daughter? She's a con artist? Read it yourself, Kevin, I said. I don't need to explain anything. The Healing Goddess has been exposed. You can be blind, but I won't let you use my money and property to support a criminal. He was silent. I could hear his choked, ragged breathing over the phone. I knew this shock had completely broken him. The woman he had defended so fiercely, the woman for whom he had betrayed his family, was a professional fraud. I felt no satisfaction, only pity for his profound foolishness. A few days later was my father-in-law's 60th birthday. His parents insisted that both Kevin and I attend the party at their home upstate. I didn't want to see him, but I went to maintain a good relationship with them and to show everyone that I was not the one at fault. That weekend, the remnants of a tropical storm hit the northeast, bringing heavy rain and high winds. I drove carefully, with Teddy in the back. As I was driving on a quiet country road, the downpour intensified, limiting visibility. Suddenly, a truck in front of me slammed on its brakes. I didn't have time to react. My car hydroplaned on the wet pavement. Crunch! With a loud bang, my car slammed into the back of the truck. Thankfully, my seatbelt held me tight. I fought to stay calm and checked on Teddy in the back. He was screaming in terror but seemed uninjured. I tried my door, it was jammed shut. Kevin had been driving behind me. He saw the accident and immediately pulled over, sprinting out into the torrential rain. He ran to my car, his face white with fear. Sarah, Teddy, are you two okay? Teddy's fine, but the doors are stuck. Kevin yanked on my door, then ran to the back. With a surge of adrenaline, he wrenched the damaged rear door open. He unbuckled Teddy and pulled him into his arms, holding our crying son tightly. Daddy's here, it's okay, son, you're safe. Watching him hold our child, his face a mask of regret and terror, I felt my heart soften for a moment. He was a terrible husband, but he was still a father. His instinct to protect his family was still there. After getting us to a nearby cafe to shelter from the rain, Kevin went back to deal with the accident. He was visibly shaken, his eyes never leaving us. He saw his chance to mend things. Sarah, I'm so sorry, he said, his voice hoarse from the cold. I'm sorry for everything. I was so blind. I was wrong. I looked at him, my expression still cool. An apology is too late, Kevin. You've hurt me too much. The love is gone. All that's left is your responsibility as a father. I know, he pleaded. But I promise I'll fix it. I'll cut Jessica out of my life completely. I'll never see her again. Please, just give me one more chance. No, Kevin. The chances are all used up. I've filed for divorce. I've changed our son's last name. You need to focus on fixing yourself. I don't need a husband like you anymore. The accident had been a wake-up call for him. He realized that this broken family was still the only one he had. At his father's birthday party that evening, he faced his parents again, but this time he didn't argue. He bowed his head, admitted his faults, and promised to sever all ties with Jessica. In the middle of the party, in front of me and his parents, he took out his phone. "Mom, Dad, Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm doing this right now." He opened his contacts, found Jessica's name, and blocked her number. Then he went through his messaging and social media apps and blocked her there too. It's done. From this moment on, she has nothing to do with my life. His parents sighed in relief. His mother hugged me. "Sarah, you see, he's truly sorry. Maybe you can—" I shook my head. "Donna, I'm sorry. I've forgiven Kevin, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I don't love him anymore. I can't live with someone who betrayed and trampled on me like that. I can never trust him again. My mind is made up." Kevin looked at me, his eyes begging. "Sarah, I promise I'll change. Just give me some time." "Kevin," I said softly, "you can change, but you need to do it for yourself, not for me. I gave you too many chances. Now it's time for me to live for my son and for myself." His grand gesture was a massive step, but it couldn't erase the scars. My decision was final. The birthday party continued in a warm but heavy atmosphere. As everyone was eating, a strange woman suddenly walked in. She was wearing a white lace dress, her face pale, her clothes soaked from the rain. It was Jessica Huang. Having been blocked, she had panicked and tracked Kevin down to his family home. She walked into the living room, saw Kevin and me sitting together, and immediately ran over, collapsing at his feet. "Kevin, please don't leave me. I know you're mad, but I didn't mean to lie to you. I was just desperate. I can't live without you. Don't listen to Sarah. She's jealous. She's trying to tear us apart." The room fell silent. All our relatives stared at her. My in-laws were furious. "Who are you? How dare you come here and cause a scene?" My father-in-law boomed. Jessica turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "Sir, please forgive me. I'm just begging Kevin for another chance. I'm not a homewrecker. I'm the victim here." Kevin stood up, his face pale with humiliation. "Jessica, what are you doing here? Go home now," he hissed. She clung to his leg, sobbing. "No, I won't leave. You have to help me. You promised you'd take care of me and my daughter." I stood up and walked over to her, looking directly into her expertly feigned, pitiful eyes. "Miss Huang," I said, my voice cold and firm, "this is my in-laws' home. This is a private party. You have no right to be here. Your business with Kevin is over. He has cut all ties with you. You are a professional con artist, and I have all the proof. Leave now, or I will call the police and have you charged with trespassing and disturbing the peace." Jessica looked at me, her eyes filled with hatred. The victim mask was gone. My threat didn't scare her. Instead, she lunged at me. "You're a monster, Sarah Parker. You're a petty, jealous shrew. You ruined my daughter's education. You ruined my business. You're trying to destroy us." My father-in-law had had enough. He stood up, grabbing his cane. "You shut your mouth. You have no right to speak to my daughter-in-law like that. You are a fraud who came here to ruin my birthday. Get out of my house now." "No," she screamed, raising her hand to slap me. Kevin caught her wrist, pushing her away. "You're insane, Jessica. Get out. You're a coward, Kevin. You promised me," she shrieked, struggling against him. My mother-in-law, gentle as she was, marched over and pointed a finger in Jessica's face. "Go. We don't want you here. You are a liar who destroys families. You have no place here. Get out." Together, my mother-in-law and I pushed her toward the door. She kicked and screamed, but we forced her out onto the porch. My father-in-law slammed and locked the door behind her. Her just punishment wasn't just being thrown out, it was having the truth of her character exposed to everyone. A few weeks later, I learned that Jessica had been arrested for fraud and the use of forged documents. Her various schemes had finally caught up with her. Justice was served. Kevin and I finalized our divorce 3 months later. As agreed, he took the retail space and his share of our assets. I kept the condo, my personal savings, and everything else. His remorse was real, but it was too late. He knew he had lost a good wife and a happy family. After the divorce, Kevin bought a small apartment in the building next to mine. He wanted to be close to our son, to atone for his mistakes. He became a better father, visiting Teddy often and taking him on outings. But I had a new life. I dedicated myself to my career, my son, and myself. I took advanced courses, traveled, and lived the independent life I had always cherished. Kevin was always nearby, hoping for reconciliation. He would send apologetic texts and gifts for me and our son, but I never accepted them. One afternoon he stood at my door, looking weary. "Sarah, I know I was wrong. Can you please give me one last chance? I promise I'll be a good husband." I smiled gently. "Kevin, I've forgiven you, but I can't go back. My life is peaceful now. I don't need a husband. I need a good father for my son. Just keep being that. As for me, I have a new, happier life." He bowed his head. He understood it was really over. A few years later, I met Michael, a former colleague. He respected me, cherished my independence, and loved my son as his own. We got married. Meanwhile, Kevin remained alone. He atoned for his sins by becoming a great father and a dedicated doctor, but he could never win back my love or my trust. Life is about choices. Kevin chose ego, blindness, and betrayal. I chose clarity, independence, and liberation. And I knew, without a doubt, that I had made the right choice. I had protected my son, defended my honor, and found a new, stronger happiness.